Alright guys, so I'm going to talk to you today about Ewahs. Ewahs are basically sort of like tulpas, but they're basically like tulpas of madness, basically. In the old tongue, they were basically known as demons of madness at one point. And it's not exactly true, per se. Ewahs are basically like tulpas, except tulpas when they are formed of basically like dreams and desires and ideals of humanity, and sometimes a rejection of them. After all, I'm not going to pretend that, humanity doesn't have some rather questionable ideas at times. But Ewahs are very different because they're more of the things that people really don't want to let out, that kind of can take over. Yeah. Basically, they're made from really strong negative emotions and negative thoughts that can basically take over and become kind of pouring out into reality because they're kind of given physical form through the power of belief, basically the way that tulpas are. Only people don't really intend for them to come out, and it's basically the reason why there's hostile monsters. And basically, that sort of negative feeling and emotion is basically also why there's a lot of supervillains and has a lot of supervillains that are basically also descendants of tulpas. Yeah, but Ewahs definitely have much more monstrous forms compared to, most of the things that were born of tulpas. And some of them are a little eldritch looking in nature, given what they're made up of. So it can look really, really strange. Or they could look completely normal for the most part, like, they're basically like monsters. In fact, what was basically made from Ewah that's in the lore? The Boogeyman. The Boogeyman or the Boogeyman of Darkness is basically the leader of Boogeyman, and they were basically Ewahs that were formed from phobias, and each one basically is basically formed from a different one, and the Boogeyman of Darkness is basically one that was formed from the fear of darkness, which was basically given kind of strong physical form due to the belief in the fear of darkness. So that's basically what I'm describing. Of course, some Ewahs can be formed from other things, such as obsessions, or, strong bitterness and hatred. All those fun stuff that people like to keep bottled up and really don't want to talk about. At least not honestly. Even though it's kind of super important that they do, honestly. Yeah. Oh, wait. I have a bit, I could probably say that it's sort of like Sindumati, isn't it? Yeah, Sindumati, if you don't know, is basically like the inner darkness of Indumati. Yeah, which awakens under the corruption of the red moonlight. And actually, it's because of the rather not so great nature of human imagination that basically things like that can happen to regular tulpa. They're basically regular descendants of tulpas like I am. Indumati is basically, very far removed from the very first of tulpas, was basically later on the line when they had already become people, after they gained sentience and all that. Yeah, but there's still a lot of things like that still around. And there's also a lot of Ewahs that are like that too. Yeah. Yeah, and Ewahs aren't typically very fond of, beings that are basically descendant of the Tulpa descendants. Probably because they were so shunned by humanity and all that. Since they represented things that were, since they were basically formed from things that were a little less than ideal. If I have to say so myself. Yeah. Basically, the reason why there's corruption in human imagination is largely due to this entity known as glitch code, which was basically formed because of, the infection of the 8 great evils, which were once trapped in the box of evils, which was basically where the 8 great evils were basically sealed into by the goddess of creation to try and keep them from damaging the rest of the universe because they had basically caused a lot of damage during the war. during the Dark Ages, you know, when Lilith was basically around before she got sealed away in the Red Moon. And basically, some of the gods basically decided, hey, we don't want humanity, we don't want to serve humanity, and also basically we want them to be subservient to us, and also we're not going to let them be equal to us whatsoever. So basically, they tricked humanity into opening the box of evils, and basically the 8 great evils in their power basically poured out and, infected humanity, and that's basically why there's Ewahs and, some corruption within tulpas, because it did affect human imagination and as part of a consequence of it. And since Indumati is basically a product of human imagination, which she's basically a descendant of tulpas. That's basically why Sindumati is a thing, basically. Yeah. Anyway, that concludes a summary on Ewahs and tulpas. Well, a little bit anyway. I'll see you in the next. Remember to play games and have fun, okay? Bye-bye now.